point of a patent is that you share your idea with the world in return for a monopoly. But if you haven't got the resources to exploit the monopoly, all you've done is you've given the idea away.
Hang on, why did you buy a typewriter ribbon, say for a
Because I bought a new typewriter and I needed a ribbon.
A new
for it.
typewriter?
Well, a new old one, yeah.
What were you using a typewriter for?
For marketing. We sell machines that check the data on labels. Got a great photograph of British carrots. There was a guy who was obviously very unhappy with his employer and didn't want to work there anymore for whatever. Certainly didn't want to work there after this anyway. But it was perfectly printed. It printed exactly what it said it was going to print. Okay, 2 lorry loads of carrots saying they come from Chernobyl went off to the supermarket, right?
Bullshit on backbone, it would be insane if I bought a Yugo 55A that's currently on the internet.
It depends if you want to meet any Yugoslavians. Yeah, you see, ex-Yugoslavians, because I have got a Renault 12 and it's a fantastic way of meeting Romanian van drivers.
This is Manufacturing Uncensored, brought to you by the PPMA Show 26.
Today we're talking everything from innovation to leadership to how the PPMA has been part of Richard's life for more than 30 years. The UK is brilliant at inventing things. Why do we struggle to turn those inventions into successful businesses?
Well, it's not a given that it's a disaster. There are companies like Dyson, for example, and you've got our friend in Southampton who's in the internet, and all sorts of successful inventions have come out of the UK. On a personal basis, I can speak from the position of failure because I've got a dozen patents that were granted and have done incredibly well. And my mother was very proud with the wall covered in framed patents. And all I managed to do was to lose several £100,000 because I had enough money to build the prototypes and to prove that they were working, but I didn't have enough money to get them into the market. I think the thing is, it's really, really difficult to get technology into the market. I think people completely underestimate how it was. The government doesn't help. Years ago, they used to do something called Smart Awards, which were a 75% funded scheme, where it gave you enough money to get a prototype. It gave you, and you got very excited about how clever you'd been. But unless you had enough money, or unless it was a very simple device, or enough money to get it into the market, without someone to come along and invest in it, you really had a problem. Bookham was a successful Smart Award winner, which went on to do great things. And there have been several, but an awful lot of them stopped at the final fence. It's rather like being in a video game when you haven't got enough pies to get over the wall. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Certainly, we don't have that risky investment culture here.
Yeah.
In the UK, you can be a failure and you can get really depressed about it. In America, you can be a failure and it's one of those things. Get on and do it better next time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely it. And of course, the market in America is much bigger, and the market worldwide is much bigger than the UK. So we haven't done it, but we are absolutely at the forefront of innovation. Now, one of the things a few years ago, when I was in fact in the chair at the PPMA, I went up and I spoke to the fringe meeting at the Labour Party conference. This was when Ed Miliband was in charge, and there was a great guy called Chuka Umaga who was doing the industrial policy, and we were trying to point out the fact that the UK, the state, will teach you maths, and then the state will then judge you with an A-level as to whether you learnt anything or not. But when it comes to intellectual property, the state doesn't give you much help at all, but it judges you very harshly through the patent office whether you've got an inventive step or whether you've got a proper patent or something like that. So a lot of stuff that could go through doesn't, or it does go through, but then it doesn't get anywhere. The proposition at the time was that we should look at intellectual property as a state issue as much as a private issue, because if there was a really good idea that emanated from the UK, then we could get behind it. If it was qualified by a peer group or whatever, if it got somewhere, the state could protect it, and then that would mean that the higher wages we pay here would actually be justified to be paid because the product would have to be made here. As it is, we quite often invent something, the patent isn't done properly, the patent fades, you've simply given the idea to someone else. The whole point of a patent is that you share your idea with the world in return for a monopoly. But if you haven't got the resources to exploit the monopoly, all you've done is you've given the idea away. And a lot of that happens here. I think there's all sorts of policy that could happen that would help protect intellectual property here, so that things had to actually happen here, and then the development could happen here. And it could be something that Automate UK could get involved in, or it could be something that Make UK or Innovate UK. There's a sort of, the state holds back from helping its own people or its own manufacturing industry get these inventions into the market.
Do you think that would, you mentioned, if the state backed it, then we would make it here. Do you think there's an argument there then about this reshoring? We always talk about sending things off to China and making it there, but they, I'm not going to say on podcast that they steal IP, but, if we're going to hold the IP here, would we actually manufacture it, or do you think consumerism would just push the price down, that we just send it to China anyway?
I think, nothing is as simple as, just ask Rachel Reeves, it's not as simple as you think. The point is that the important thing is to retain the control here, so that you can retain the profits or your fair share of them. We were talking to the chap who was the ex-MD of Dyson the other day, and really interesting fellow. They got into a lot of criticism for exporting manufacture to other countries. But when you talk to them, there's all sorts of good reasons for that, because other places are better served to do it. The important thing is you end up making you keep some of the profits, some of the control here, which then goes into our economy. I mean, a great thing is Patent Box. I mean, Patent Box was George Osborne's innovation, and it's on the basis that because manufacturing is quite often done all over the place, by having a patent on it here in the UK, and manufacturing wherever you are, you can end up with 10% corporation tax. Now that incentivises a lot more people to spend a lot more time and a lot more of their profit making on any production process in the UK.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about reshoring, right, I think there's a fundamental bit, is there's been a global supply chain forever. Right? I mean, what Richard's saying is right, the control needs to be in this country, and the fundamentals, which, can be the assembly. But you look what's going on in America of their policies with tariffs and things like that. They suddenly realised they couldn't get steering racks for a certain make of Dodge truck. And they're like, oh, this is ridiculous that this steering rack... Well, that steering rack's been coming from Europe since 1947. So when we talk about reshoring, we have this kind of thing that we're bringing all of it. We're going to do every sensor, every cable, every gland is all going to be in the UK. And like Richard and I's role is to promote UK manufacturing and the automation thereof. But you have to be pragmatic and realise, well, really, since the gap between the First and Second World War, there has been a global manufacturing network anyway, which, in the 40s rather paired in two sides, right, but then came back together. So what Richard's saying is absolutely right, is that when we talk about reshoring, it's about the control and the fundamental difference staying in this country.
You see, some things, for example, if you want to buy rubber, you go and buy it in Bangladesh. If you want to buy silk, you go and buy it in China. If you want to buy marble, you buy it in Iran, because that's where they come from. And so things are related to that. You might as well do it there rather than do it here. But there are other things where people think that labour is cheaper in other places, and they send a complicated manufacturing process for a limited number of products out to China or wherever. And it's a disaster, because the guys there don't know what the quality is that's required, and they've never seen that sort of product before, and it takes a while. Now, of course, that's slightly out of date thinking, because we buy equipment and motors and things from China, and I can't help myself because they're a quarter of the price and they work perfectly well. So why wouldn't you? But it's adding the value that we do here.
But if you want to buy you want to buy rubber, Bangladesh, you want to buy innovation, UK. I mean, aside from anything we're doing, I was struck by an article in, I think, the Times. There of the top 10 AI businesses away from the mainstream of like Claude and Copilot, the top 10 kind of industrial mainframe AI companies are headquartered or technical headquartered. 4 of them are UK companies or UK-based companies. So it's the innovation bit, which is Richard's alluding to, is you get behind the innovation, and the good chance is that the innovation leads to manufacturing, leads to automation. And even like Dyson, Dyson were on the cusp. They produced in the UK for a long time. They then went to the Far East, and that was 28 years ago, but they actually produce more in the UK now than they did before they made the strategic decision. And every time they've tried to do something new, whether it be the hand dryer or it would be the stillborn Range Rover competitor they spent $500 million on, they were always going to do it in the UK to begin with. But for every Dyson, there needs to be a Richard, there needs to be a me, there needs to be 500 PPMA members, etc., etc. It's the landscape isn't quite right. Richard's absolutely there.
I mean, but one thing we do have. I remember Gordon Brown always said we export education. We do have good technical education here, and there's an awful lot of people from around the world come here to learn about stuff, and of course they then go and do it. They go home and do it. But there's an awful lot of people who stay here. There's a lot of research and the universities and things. I mean, we do a lot of the products we sell end up at university on university spin outs at university research parks. There's a lot of good stuff going on. It's not all going away.
Can you just explain to the people that don't recognise you or recognise your voice, if this is on audio, who you are and what your story is that got you to this position?
Right. Okay.
Put a time limit.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. No, well, my name is Richard Little, and I'm the MD of Jenton International. And Jenton International is part of the Jenton Group, and we have been going for 53 years this time, so far. It's a family business. So my dad did the first half, and I've done the second half, and then we're still looking at what comes next. But at least 50% of the people who work for Jenton are there through grounds of nepotism and people we've known, and it's a good old fashioned family business. We're quite innovative. Everyone gets on. It's a good thing. I didn't always do that. So I had a really enjoyable couple of years selling double glazing, which despite it's only 2 years, it wasn't a huge part of my life, but it had a huge impact on what I was doing. And then I went to university, and then I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to the recruitment side of things, but I did love exhibitions, because the great thing about a family business is when you've got a kid, you might call it work experience, but it's actually free labour. So I used to be dragged along to exhibitions to help carry things and set things up and so on, which is where I got my love of exhibitions, I suppose. And I was at an exhibition, having in my van delivered a whole pile of magazines for Converting Today. And the lady there, a lady called Lorna Douglas, who was absolutely brilliant, she was the sales rep. She was having a wonderful time. And I said, "We've got any jobs going?" And before you know it, I'm a salesman for Packaging Today. And if anyone knows the great David Chadd, who's here at Automate, he was on Packaging News and I was on Packaging Today, so we were great rivals at the time. He was considerably better at it, which is why he's doing it now. And so I was selling advertising, and I ended up selling advertising for Packaging Today for a couple of years, including to a company in Southampton called Ariana, who made automation equipment. And I got on really well with the bloke there, and he offered me a job. So I ended up working for him for a couple of years, and then the European trade barriers came down, and so my poor old dad, who was an agency business, got fired by 2/3 of his suppliers because they did everything direct, didn't need us anymore, and so I went to work with him, and gradually worked in the family business for a long time. He thought I was an idiot. I thought he was, and then we found out 12 years later that we actually got on reasonably well, which was a really good thing to do. And the rest, as they say, is history. After he died, I actually bought Ariana from the receiver, and my old mate Rob, who'd been my boss, came to teach us how to do manufacturing. And so that's how we got into manufacturing. So now we do about half of what we make, we make ourselves, and about half of what we sell we buy from and import from other people. So kind of that's where we are. And back in 1987, my dad was one of a group of people led by Derek Moore, who were particularly unimpressed with the Interfex exhibition being moved to the dreadful new NEC, because it had been in Brighton, and Brighton's a good place to have shows actually. Right. So it was a terrible idea to go there. So he set up this rival organisation, the PPMA, to stick two fingers up at Reed Exhibitions. And so there were 8 companies, of which Jenton was one, and we have been to, we joined in wholeheartedly. The first exhibition was in 1988, and I've been to every one. I was there as a salesman for advertising. I was selling advertising, selling machines, and then working with my dad, and I've been there ever since. And for the last 18 years or something awful like that, I've been a director here and been involved in helping run the show.
This is Manufacturing Uncensored, brought to you by the PPMA Show 2026.
What's been your favourite show in 30 years? Do you have a year?
I think the year after what happened, there was a period when the show was run as a joint venture with the Reed Exhibitions. So much to the chagrin of some of the people who started the association, there was a good reason for it. The Reed Exhibitions and the PPMA got together to run a joint show called Total. Rather unfortunately called totalpp.com. I remember that. Anyway, but there was but it gradually. But in any case, the part of my role when I was a director was to be involved in the negotiations and the deal to get the show back from Reed to back in. So it became 100% owned by the PPMA, which it now is. And I think the first show after we got the show back from Reed, when we did it all ourselves, that was undoubtedly the best one, because that we proved that we could do it again. Worked out well. But of course, the next show is always going to be the best.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, September is going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
And 2027, when it's where we are the NEC. That's going to be.
Yeah.
Richard and Sally, it was the best show. It wasn't just the best show because they had control of it. So I would just be a member at that point, whatever term you want to use for member. Or it's. They immediately got control of it, went back to basics, and if you look at the data, that first show, so it's 15 or 16? 15.
I can't remember.
But all of a sudden the show was starting to die because Reed's the model was being generalistic. Immediately, the satisfaction and the visitor numbers just started climbing and climbing and climbing. And it led to a situation in 2019 where we ran out of hall. And so in 2019, PPMA show used all of Hall 5, which we never thought was going to be possible again. And we had a high satisfaction, and we had a record number of people through the door that we'd had. And then the good work that Richard has done, and the team's done here. So Richard, his show director, is amazing work, doing incredible works, mentoring the team here. Scott McKenna, we know, right? We have been one of the healthiest shows post-COVID, because again, we went back to basics, right? But tried to do about 5-6 new things a year.
Well, you see, the show. You see, the thing is, and it's the same with the publishing, with the magazines that we have, so with Machinery Update. We are, to some extent, it's a club. We're all in the same. We're all in the same boat together, and certainly my career has always been that sales are based on talking to people, pressing the flesh, talking, seeing what's going on. And an exhibition is when, if you get a load of like minds at the exhibition, you talk to your competitors, because it's like, there are plenty of time when people play tennis, really trying to get one over on each other all game, and then they go over to the bar afterwards. And that's, that, of course you don't tell people who you're going to visit the next week, but there's a lot of things you have in common with people in your industry, and that's kind of what Automate is all about. It's maximising the things we have in common, getting joint voices so people listen to what we have to say. But also, there was a guy, one of the guys at the exhibition last year was moaning to me, because I go along and bounce along to them and say, how's the show going? And they go, it's a bit quiet this afternoon, it's rubbish, because their particular stand was quiet. I said, well, why don't you get off the stand and go and see some of the other members?
Yeah.
This is a perfect time to go and to work with people. And we, Jenton, over the years, we've applied, we've entered some of the PPMA awards, for example. And I don't like to do too many because it looks like it's a setup, but it's not, because what we did, the ones we entered are ones where it was the cooperation type ones, the joint ventures where you work with a customer or you work with another member and come up with something between you, and that's what happens at the show. You go around and you see your other members and get to know them.
To be clear, it's not a setup. The way I can attest that is Richard's had quite a good winning streak. I entered once the year I wasn't chairman last year, best in service with this new service package we got, which is getting high reviews that we're like. I always had to check that our staff weren't lying about the feedback forms, and we lost out to Friston Pumps because they had one on a Friday night. They put a pump in a taxi. So it's really not. I'm not bitter about that. It wasn't a fundamental reason why I came back as chairman. But we very much look forward to the new judging panel we have in 2026, and we don't see. I've noticed about 4 of the judging panel have retired in the last year. But what I mean by that, it's a great line, right? Because and Friston are a great company, you know the number of their taxis, but it does underline it's not. And every year Richard enters when Richard has won.
No, we don't.
But
a couple of years.
Richard also doesn't know how to take compliments. You look at the categories that Richard has won over about the 15, 20 years I've paid attention. You've done partnership, you've done innovation products. Jenton is fantastic at giving everything a go in a very positive way, right?
Oh, we give things a go.
Yes, give things a go.
Yeah.
But then sometimes not overthinking it, like some of the things you're doing with Soken at the moment, right?
No, well, but this is the great thing. There's a huge amount of discussion about AI and about automation, and the thing is that nothing ever gets uninvented. My mate Patrick, he makes steam engines. Railway steam engines for theme parks. Now they don't make a huge number of steam engines anymore for obvious reasons, but I bought a typewriter ribbon the other day from someone who makes typewriter ribbons, and again he's not a booming business either. The thing is, nothing ever gets uninvented, and there's a place for everything still.
Hang on, why did you buy a typewriter ribbon? Don't say for a
typewriter. I bought a new typewriter, and I needed a ribbon.
A new typewriter.
Well, a new old one. Yeah.
What were you using a typewriter for?
For marketing. Yeah. Now, if I type a name and address on an envelope, I put a stamp on it and put it in the post, people open it. You see, because they want to know what's in it. You see, so that's why I do it, and it annoys my colleague Russell, who does everything on computer. So tap 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 winds him up, which I enjoy.
That's brilliant, though.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Olivetti?
It is an Olivetti.
It is
an Olivetti. Yeah. Yeah, I know a man who restores them, actually, if you're interested.
Yeah, I can go talk to you. I'll do that. We've had Bianca on. These are like,
modern day
thank
marketing.
God these are 2 weeks apart. We've had Bianca on about digital marketing. And then we have Richard on. Both are valid, right?
Yeah.
Well, you want a bit of both, don't you? You want a bit of both,
yeah.
because you've got to keep everyone happy.
Yeah, this is a little
But
bit...
also, you see, automation, the Ariana-style automation started out doing things that people didn't want to do. It was Ferry, this chap Ferry I used to work for, he invented a machine for putting pads in trays underneath trout, at silver trout. Now, nobody wanted... The reason he did it was that nobody wanted to sit in the cold putting pads under in trays of trout all day, so we came up with a gadget to do it, and then thought, blimey, lots of other people want this, and set up a company to sell the padding machines. And then from that, launched into all the convergers and sackers and all the other things that you used to do. We still do. But that's simply doing things that other people could do. And then you gradually progress into things that, hang on, you were in where before people used to test packs by squidging on them, mince packs by pressing on them at the end of the line. We've got machines that do that automatically, which A, is consistent, but we can give them, I've only got 2 hands, but our machine has got 12, which means you can do 12 packs at once. So then you've got the automation that can do things like that, which can do more than a person can do, but it's things that people can do. And then you get automation like vision, for example, where you're looking at a barcode at 150 a minute, which nobody can do. No, it doesn't matter how good you are. Humans can't do that. So by doing that, you can do things that you couldn't do otherwise. You can run at speeds you couldn't do. which enables. So automation, there's different levels of automation within automate. It's not, and of course you've got robots that have got, you can have a robot with a 12-foot arm, which is a lot longer than mine, and it will also perfectly happily work in a radioactive environment, which I won't. So there are all sorts of things you can do with robots and automation, and it's picking. It's not all about the same thing. So it's like a word like technology. Automation's a big word, and the job of our job is to spend a bit of time on each bit of it and promote it to the different markets and the different customers. And when people come to the show and they're looking for a robot, you say, well, no. So you don't want a robot. You want a conveyor. So you try and help them out.
So this goes
where you got it from?
No, it is. It's where you got it. No, I got it from. It's where we're aligned. Is that Richard and I? We have a very good automate board, right? But one thing that Rich and I have in common, and why I really like having Richard supporting me, and more of us supporting the wider automate business, is because not every application is a robot, and Automate UK is not the robot Association of Britain. That's part of us, and this thing of appropriate automation. And you look at Richard's dividers, which would, I guess, was an offshoot of the Ariane, where you're doing tray dividers, right? They're using some pretty basic linear actuation technologies and control, which other people are doing with robots, and the robot never gets it right and there's a blockage, whereas Richard's using what looks like pretty rudimentary engineering, but he's timed it well, it's reliable, and it works for the application.
Well, you use the horses for courses. Yeah. But the thing is, though, the thing about technology is you get people who say, oh, I went to the show last year. We don't get people coming every year. What's really interesting is that people come, like in any one year, you get 30% coming from the year before, and then there's 70% of the people who come to the show are new visitors every year, pretty much, because people don't see, but I went to the show, it hadn't changed much. But we're in a world where things are changing all the time, you just can't see them. Analogy would be, I used to be a trustee in an aviation museum. Now, if you look at an airliner from 1960s, and if you showed your granny a picture of an airliner from the 1960s and a picture of an airliner from now, and say, what's the difference? She probably won't tell the difference, because it doesn't. The difference is what's happened inside. If you compare the 50 years before that, from World War I to 1960s, you think, oh, there's quite a lot of difference. So to start with, the processes have to be developed as to how you're going to do things. And lots of processes like form, fill, seal, flow wrap, all of that stuff has been done. And we do the similar sorts of things. It's rare to get a new type of packaging altogether. But what's happening is the refinement, the control, the speed, the reliability, the sustainability of it is all changing. And that is what people come to see. And they don't realise the technology. It's like you get people coming to the show, and they come into the show because they want to buy a mangle. And they come home with a tumble dryer. Yeah. Because they didn't realise what the thing is, the danger is to let people buy what they think they want. The whole point of if you come to the show, you've got, I don't know, thousands of years of experience standing around the building. And you can ask people about what to do. Because so often people think they know what to do, but actually that's not what they want at all.
The innovation in process and packaging machinery, inclusive of robotics, is actually staggering, but it's bite size. So if you were to look at Richard's stand in 2015, when we first got it back, and my stand in 2015, you would actually think the machines look quite the same, like the airliner. But if you look at both what Richard's doing and what I'm doing, let alone anybody else, and you get the guards open, so you get close, you will see that actually if you put the two machines together, or the two systems together, you've actually got a breathtaking level of difference in terms of integrated system and what it's handling. But whereas kind of robotics and industrial vision is like, and obviously what we're seeing with AI and digitalisation is kind of big step, as Richard's saying. They're in the process between the first world wars in terms of prop paint to jet, right? But PPMA type equipment is really is really post-war. It fits, right? But everything that we do now is integrated system. The products and packaging that PPMA people are handling, we didn't think was automatable 20 years ago. Product which is 95% recycled. I run a lot of our PET, our recycled PET, It's basically 100% PET. There's just enough virgin in it to give it some grind, give it some structure rather. So, process and packaging machinery people are evolving machine by machine, and you don't really notice it until you take the machine from 2026 and the machine from 2016 and go, oh my god, that's quite sizable.
Yeah, but sometimes there are other indicators, you see. So, for example, if you open a big Grunwald machine and you listen with your ear trumpet, it's a lot quieter than it used to be.
Yeah.
Because everything, part of control it's about stopping things wearing out.
Yeah.
By making everything move, by making precision. There's really good precision, making things, controlling the stops and starts, ramping speeds up, ramping speeds down, so things don't wear out. Everything is now about energy, it's about waste. The big things coming up in 2026, 2027 are all to do with sustainability and waste. All the waste reporting directives. If you can, there's inspection. The hall we were in at Interpack was absolutely full of inspection equipment. It can be vision equipment like ours, or it can be X-ray machines or metal detectors or whatever else. People don't want to throw things away because everything's now automated, you can fill a lorry with something that's wrong if you're not careful.
Yep.
So, and the whole lot gets thrown away, which is a terrible waste, and you get into loads of trouble because you have to report it. So the automation and the vision and the checking and the inspection enables you to be brave enough to go into an automation situation, because if something's going slightly astray, you can stop it. You don't waste it. And it's all about waste. There's so many people looking at seal. I think WRAP, about 2 weeks ago, WRAP came out with the announcement that 25% of food is wasted before it gets to the consumer.
Yeah.
And that's awful, because if you think how many people don't have enough food, if you actually if you saved a large proportion of that 25% and just gave it away, you'd be better off. To be honest, there's so much work can be done.
So to put that in context, if that was the same wastage amount, if you, not that they're there, but Richard and I supply the same salads factory in the south of the UK, and the factory where we both have equipment in, if they had that wastage, and actually they probably don't, they're at the better end, that's about 220 tonnes of wasted food a week. So 25% is high, right? But you put it from one site, if they had that wastage, that's 220 tonnes of wasted food a week.
And that's where an awful lot of the work is coming in. So there are so many innovations. There's stuff we get involved, for example, ultraviolet disinfection. You've got ultraviolet disinfection in your machines.
Yeah.
If you stop things going bad. And it's not just about stopping the one or two going bad, because you don't want the one that they open when you get to the supermarket to have gone bad, because the whole batch is rejected. You've got to make sure things don't go bad. Keeping people away from food is a good way of stopping it going bad, to be honest, because most of the bad comes in with the people, which is quite a big deal. But then there are other clever innovations now. The new digital link, so. As GS1 Digital Link, which is being a big deal with Tesco's. Tesco's are bringing it forward quite early on. You've got big 2D barcodes with loads of data in. Now, the 2D data gives you so much many more opportunities. For example, if you go to the supermarket and you want some steaks, then you hunt around, because they're expensive. You hunt around for the ones with the longest sell-by dates. Okay, and you take them. But with the 2D barcode, you've got loads of data on there which can apply at the till. So you could say, for example, anything within 2 days of the sell-by date is now 25% off. So you've got a second group of people who are now searching because they want a steak today.
Yep.
So they're just looking for the 25% off ones because they're going to cook it tonight. That's a really good way of stopping waste. And there's so much innovation coming out from different angles. And just about every company at the show has got a sustainability angle. It's all if we can all club together and say, then that really makes a big difference, and it brings costs down as well. Because the government's saying, the supermarkets ought to reduce their prices, and the supermarkets are going, you must be bonkers. That's not the way it works. What the rules and the regs that are leading towards people doing reducing waste, and us enabling customers to reduce their waste and keep control of what they're doing, that will bring the prices down.
I wish I could quantify it so it wasn't just a great line on a speech, but I would argue that there aren't many more industry sectors doing a better job at keeping the cost of living down as Automate members. Because if Automate members selling into food factories primarily weren't enabling less wastage,
Yep.
longer shelf life product, healthier product at a price point that lasts longer, your cost of living crisis that you saw with the weekly bill go up, Automate members have allowed their end users to keep that to a level. I understand it's not great, and we hear about the amount of people using food banks and stuff, but the main societal piece that Automate members do is are a major contributor to the cost of your groceries not being as insane as they could be.
One little example. I mean, we sell machines that check the data on labels. So we don't just check to make sure labels are printed correctly, we check the data. Got a great photograph of British carrots. Okay, country of origin, Chernobyl. There was a guy who was obviously very unhappy with his employer and didn't want to work there anymore for whatever. Certainly didn't want to work there after this anyway. But it was perfectly printed. It printed exactly what it said it was going to print. Okay, 2 lorry loads of carrots saying they come from Chernobyl. Off to the supermarket, right? Okay, the innovation that we bring in, which is actually check the data, means that wouldn't happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, he might have thought it was funny, but it's not that funny to throw away 2 articulate lorries worth of carrots, and stuff like that. The stopping bad things happening is really important. And you could go through just about every member at the show and all the different things they do. Whether it's from rollers that last longer, or motors that last longer, or you look at some of the hygienic design from the pneumatic suppliers and things like that. All of that is making us less likely for things to go wrong, less likely for things to jam up. I'm not saying it's all Six Sigma, but that's a bit dreamland for me. But anyway, I think we're up to about 2 Sigma. But the point is, but it's still good. It's still good.
We just like a notebook, right? Notebook and pen. How many Sigmas is a notebook and pen?
Yeah.
Richard you wouldn't allow Richard to bring his notebook in because it's from your competitor.
It is,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's all right. I brought my notebook in, which is from my competitor. So there you go. It's all fair in love with war. That's right, yeah.
We've got a segment on here called Bullshit or Backbone, and we don't allow you to explain your answer until you've picked a side. No sitting on the fence.
Okay.
Patents are overrated. Bullshit or backbone?
Backbone. No, hang on. Bullshit. Patents are not overrated.
Okay.
They're just misused. A patent is a really important thing. A patent is really, really important because what it's meant to do and what it does is that it's a deal between the world and people who come up with ideas. And the world needs new ideas, and anyone can have an idea. As you see, inventors and comedians have a lot in common, actually, because everyone looks at the world the same. Everyone looks at the same world, but comedians, when they come up with a funny joke, look at a different aspect. Something catches their eye, okay? And inventors are comedians as well in that world. They see something and you think, you know what? Why is it like that? Why can't we do it like this? And that is such an important thing to catch. Mm-hmm. So you catch it, and if you get a patent on it, then you share that idea with the world. The system has got some weak points because that's a perfectly pure intention. And patents is like a game of chess because it can protect you and it can cost you a lot of money. I mean, if I had spent a few £100,000 in a betting shop, right, I wouldn't, because you'd be ashamed to have me on the programme because I would be a sad, gambling, I'd let myself down and my family down or whatever else. You spend it in a patent agent and you're an entrepreneur. It's marvellous. And you get all this, and the financial effect is the same. And my patent agent has got a fantastic Aston Martin, I have to say. So there's a word there for anyone doing an engineering degree to get into into patent law. But the opportunities for that are great. But the thing, as I said earlier, about this, about using it properly. So, if a really good inventive step. Now, if you can do it different ways. If you have a really good inventive step, you can file for a patent. You don't have to see it through, but you've actually acknowledged the fact that you have done it. Yes, you file the data. So if someone comes along and invents it later, they can't stop you doing it. For example, if you publish, so if you have a really good idea and you publish it in your school magazine that no one reads, doesn't matter, you published it, it's in the public domain. So you can play games to make sure that the whole point of the patent system is to try and stop, so you can do what you want. Okay, it's not all about, everyone thinks it's about stopping other people. For example, if I was patenting something now, I would patent it, maybe I would go for the UK and maybe Germany. And I would really hope that people in Holland, Belgium, France, Spain took it on and did it, because they'd be creating demand for Germany and the UK, where I would get the license fees. Because instead of, the costs are prohibitive to go for a world patent. How much money do you actually need? But innovation isn't all about patents either. I mean, my classic story I've got is that you think about Mr. Dyson. Now, Mr. Dyson, I have no idea these numbers, but he's got an awful lot of money. Let's say he's made a bucket load of money. He's gone through hell to get there. If you read his book, he's gone through absolute hell to get there, and he's really worked really, really hard, and so on and so on. But you see, I've got a Henry. Now, I do like my Henry, because it's really good, very robust. Now, the chap who owned Pneumatic, which is a UK company, he was innovative as well. He got some sticky eyes, and he stuck them on his vacuum cleaner, and lo and behold, he's only got several £100 million. So he hasn't done as well as Mr. Dyson, but he's done well enough. And quite often, you've got to pick the level of innovation for where you want to go.
This is Manufacturing Uncensored, brought to you by PPMA Show 2026. Next one. There are too many exhibitions in the UK.
There's nothing like enough.
So bullshit.
Well, yeah, it's bullshit. I mean, of course, it's like eating chocolate cake. You have to know your limits. But an awful lot of traditional marketing approaches don't work terribly well, in my humble opinion. Emails. I'm not a big fan of email marketing. I mean, we all do it because we have to tell people about the show. But it's an instant flash. Yeah. Because once it disappears off the bottom of the screen, if you haven't looked at it, it's gone. Yeah. It is difficult. The reason our print media works at Automate UK is our magazine is very, very concentrated on our industry. Yeah. It's almost like the club magazine, and people read it. But there are an awful lot of trade magazines and things that have gone by the wayside because they you can get what you want on the internet.
Yeah. Did you do pig and poultry?
Sorry?
Did you do the pig and poultry show?
No, I didn't. I did not do the pig and poultry show. I got almost an unbeatable offer, but I was doing something else.
You had to be slightly careful because Bull Beaters with Chatham House rules, but we might have had a certain Welsh female director of Automate UK who wanted to offload her pig and poultry exhibition. Where she went. She had a great time.
I would have gone. I mean,
so she spent all afternoon. She basically hijacked an Automate board meeting, knowing that Richard loves an exhibition, and did he want the real estate?
Did I want your stuff? I mean, the thing is, the thing about exhibitions is it's very, very difficult, whatever exhibition it is, not to make it worthwhile in relation to your normal travelling day. If you go, so there are two ways to do exhibitions. You can go and visit exhibitions that you're not exhibiting at, and you can exhibit at exhibitions. Now, I tend to think you shouldn't try and sell things directly at exhibitions unless you have a booth. Yes. That's certainly our approach. Yep. But it doesn't mean it's a good way to find out about stuff. Mm-hmm. And there are so many, it doesn't matter whether it's the the autumn fair, the spring fair, Glee. There's if you look on the NEC or the Excel websites, there are shows all over the place, and there are lots of little shows as well. I mean, this Stoneleigh Park this weekend, for anyone who's interested, it's the National Funeral Show. Now, I'm not visiting that one particularly, but
it's on your radar.
It's on. Yes, that's right. Well, I bought one of those expanding things recently. You put coffins on. You know those. Is the thing? You know the sort of like a trolley.
Yeah. Why did you buy?
Well, it's brilliant for demonstrating machines. I've made a lid for it, so you put it folds up in the car. You put it out the back, and then you put a machine on it and wheel it into someone's factory. The fact it's not a coffin is irrelevant. Bloody brilliant.
Could you get some like housing for the machine that looks like a coffin? That's
no, we haven't. No, we haven't seen that. It's all in beautiful. It's all in beautiful stainless steel.
Tell me you're not buying an old hearse. Don't buy an old
hearse.
No.
No. I don't need to. I've got my lovely van. But Danny.
Hey, I've got bullshit on Backbone, which is quite personal to me, but I think Richard would do it.
Okay.
Right? Bullshit on Backbone. It would be insane if I bought a Yugo 55A that's currently on the internet.
Well. I mean,
you're going to lose business.
I think
I have to go 15 minutes.
Well, it all depends how much it costs, but I would say it's a really good thing to do because it depends if you want to meet any Yugoslavians.
Right.
You see, ex-Yugoslavians, because I have got a Renault 12, and it's a fantastic way of meeting Romanian van drivers.
Yes,
because they all they come and knock on my window all the time, saying, "Wow, I had one of these when I was a kid."
So Richard,
it depends who you want to meet.
So well, my grandfather had a 45A, a 55A, and a 65A. So they're a Yugoslavian copy of a Fiat 126.
Yeah, the 55 was a bit racier than that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it's done 19,000 miles. So we should explain that Richard and I are at the more speciality end.
He's got a really lovely Cortina.
Yeah,
yeah, really good.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and I've got an orange 1970. Where's the camera? I've got a 1972 Fiat 500, which has just been rebuilt.
If anyone wants it,
How much is
that one?
Yours for 8. No warranty, 7.9.
Got to make space for a Yugo.
Yeah, for Yugo. What do you think about that? So we're at the geeky end of the car life,
right?
Right? So.
Yeah. Well, you won't see many others.
No. That's just lost you about 1,000 listeners. That, but I don't care.
How do we bring this back on track? Which way do you want to take it? PPMA show, or I know you've got 15 minutes. So PPMA show or Richard's journey?
Richard's journey.
Okay.
Actually.
What's been the hardest part up to now?
Well, I have to say I've been incredibly lucky. Because
I would do the exhibition more so. Sorry,
No. I mean, because I've enjoyed it. I think I didn't necessarily plan my career. I was determined not to work with my dad. The best thing I did was to do that because we got on really well. And at the end of the day, it's your family that counts. And the fact that we became really good buddies in the process of working together is priceless. And it also, during that period, we also realised that we took our, Russell, our technical director. I mean, I've known him for 35 years. He started out as a mate, and he's still a mate, believe it or not. We disagree on just about everything, but you really lovely people around you. It is a proper family business, and that's lovely. I mean. There are hard bits, like after that, I think in 1992, making people redundant is one of the worst things. I hate doing that. I think I'm faltering a bit because it's not. I've had a really good time. I'm having a really good time. I mean, I love all this stuff with Automate UK. I love the exhibitions. I just love. I mean, here I am. I'm just yakking. How good is that? And that's sales. It's just, which involves yakking.
Why do you love exhibitions so much?
Well, you get a chance to do some yakking and sell stuff. I mean, the point is, you see what's going on. You talk to people. It's you see people in a. If they're on their stand, you can see them. They can't hide behind a telephone because you can see them. You don't see them, which is one thing. But people are generally they're not. They're out. If you try and talk to someone in the food industry, you try and ring them up. You ring them up at 7:15 in the morning before before their meeting or whatever. At the moment, the world is so frenetic
Yeah.
They haven't got time. They don't, unless they've got a real problem, they won't talk to you. So when they've got a problem, they want you to do something straight away. They talk to you and whatever else, but they don't want to hear about everything else you do. If they come to an exhibition, the really valuable thing that they can give themselves is the time to come to a show and experience what's on show, because it gives them a time to say, well, show me, what do you do? And half the time, they've spent the last, we do a lot of stuff in the medical industry. We've sold UV curing equipment to the medical industry for years. We're very, very good, well known in that sector, in that industry. But they also put loads of things in bags. And we've never sold them a bagger. And the other day we said, well, why not? Because they don't, in a sense, when those guys come to the shows, you say, well, here's the welcome to the Jenton Emporium. This is all the things we do. What else do you want? Would you like one of these? And people have got this. People got this a little bit of time to chat, and to sometimes you give them a toffee, which means that so those nice big ones from Equality Street take about 2 minutes to chew.
Yep.
So you've got 2 minutes to talk to them before they can say anything.
Nice.
And that's very valuable. That sort of thing.
Okay.
Everybody is dedicated at an exhibition. I wouldn't say everybody. So if you look at you look at visitor and exhibitor, right? Is everybody's dedicated to the exhibition? Not necessarily at their best. We know that the revenue that the Jenton makes off our show, mainly in liquid form, suggests that not everybody's at their best.
Yeah.
But everybody's dedicated. So if somebody walks into Hall 5 and they are selling something, they're dedicated to selling something. I think, if you do an exhibition, the three of us do exhibitions all over the place. I always find an exhibition, you're not at your best because you're tired and but you kind of, by the end of the exhibition, you don't know about world news because you've been so dedicated to it. And then from the getting the visitors in, right? Rich is right. I mean, it's so hard to pin down. I know, for instance, we have somebody, if I look at a Grunwald point of view, so I've been recording these with you now, for 5 hours? Sam and I had somebody message us at 8 o'clock this morning, I want to see you on Monday. They want to see us, right? We haven't marketed them. They're saying, I think you can do this, I want to see us, right? It's taken us 5 hours to pin down when we're seeing them on Monday, right? And it's taken her 6 emails and 2 WhatsApps, okay? That person comes into Hall 5, they're dedicated.
Yeah.
So we can actually get more of a message to them. And we all went down this route that exhibitions were dead off the back of COVID. Oh, the exhibition's dead.
Yeah.
And I think we called it very right not to do 2020, but we called it very, very right to do 2021. Even when we had the shadow of the fuel crisis as well, right, to really add to our plague. Not probably the wrong term for COVID, to add to our mix. But exhibitions, everybody's dedicated.
I think sometimes the visitors are the ones that need a bit of education.
Yes.
Because the Germans still call, but the Germans, when they're speaking English, call exhibitions fairs because that's how they started. It was a market. It was a dedicated market to a particular subject, and it's meant to be an enjoyable experience. It's a fair. It's a way of seeing what's going on, meeting your peers, getting some entertainment, whatever, and almost like relaxing and learning about getting into your subject. And we have some great speakers that we have, so you can come along and be educated. We've got networking events and things like that. You can have a beer with people, and you can clip your beer with your deadliest competitor and smile, and it's all very lovely. But also, if I was I get grumpy sometimes when I see people leaving at 2 o'clock because they can still miss the traffic at 4 o'clock, and they should be walking around again. I can't. Sometimes I think we ought to organise the exhibition like IKEA, so no one can find their way out.
Yep.
Right. So they get to see everything before they go. Because to be honest, I mean, if I go to an exhibition, I always go around twice.
Yeah.
And sometimes as well, you go when we go to the PAC Expo in America, for example, which is a huge, great show. It's a very hierarchical show. You only get the best spots if you've been going for years. But actually, going to the outer reaches of the show and looking at the people in the dreadful little downstairs section on Lakeside, they're the ones that have never been before. They're the ones who can't afford a very big stand.
Yeah.
But that's where some of the new guys are with the new ideas, and it's amazing. They're the people who might need an agent. They're the people who might whatever. So sometimes it's the guys around the outside, the periphery, is really worth a visit, because they're the guys that come up with a really good idea. They've just about saved enough money to have a tiny stand, and you spend all your time on the Mercedes stand, and you forget to see the up and coming BYD.
Mm-hmm. That's an important. I'll be pro automate a bit, right? I'm a big fan of the PPMA, who are our American cousins, and I'm a big fan of their Chicago show. And I'm now in the South Hall, which is the main hall, because somehow I've rocketed through. They segregate when you can pick your stand by longevity and what you pay. That means that you basically get, as Richard's saying, innovation in the basement. And I've spoken to Jim Pittas, who runs about PMI, about this. We don't do that. Now, we don't have many rules on how your stand looks. We have a height of 4 meters, but what I am so pleased about with the PPMA show and with when we do Automate Week in 2027, for every person that we want the big drives and controls people in Hall 1, but there will also be a very innovative AI company with a pop-up stand opposite it, and we will get the mix. So one thing I think we're very proud of is that we sell by anybody can book whenever they want. If you're a member, you get a discount and you get first dibs, right? That's fair, but it's mainly the discount we give for being the member. But we blend the technologies and we blend the people. So if you are a one-man band and it's your first exhibition, you could find yourself opposite one of the most global robotic or process or packaging machinery companies known to man. You can be a startup with a good idea opposite iSheet of Europe. And we're very proud of that. And that will never ever change whilst you've got the likes of me and Richard around. But I think if Richard and I found out after we'd gone that things like that came into Automate UK, we do what Derek Moore did in 1987 and start again.
Well, we don't do discounts.
No,
we don't do discounts. And then it is. Sometimes we give a free stand to, for example, Lincoln University. Or operations that are not commercial in the same way, that are of benefit both to the members and to the visitors, because we pay for some of our speakers to come and speak to us. Last year we paid for Levi Roots to come and talk. We paid for Priya Lakhani to come and talk. There were lots of people there. It was and it helped drive people to the show. And that's so we're an association. We're a club. So we do things in the common interest. So we make money. And one of the most important things we do from the show, which is really important, I haven't mentioned it up till now, and I should have done, is Automate Best, because it's young people. It's about getting young people going, and the chap from Dyson was saying, that they employed young people and they wanted people to make their first mistake. Come and make your mistakes with us. Come and learn your trade with us. And that's kind of what we would like to do as well. And there's a lot of, a lot of companies are members of Automate, have got apprentices, or are supporting people in apprentice schemes, or they've got kids at university, or even better, they've got employees who are doing part-time university degrees. And something that everyone, normally when you're looking at the association, you're meant to do things in the interest of the members. So, the part of the original target, I suppose, was to put money on the members' bottom line. But one thing all the members agree on is that if you take some of the profit we make from the show and then we give it to young people who are developing in their engineering careers, that is a worthwhile spend. And so PPMA Best, or Automate UK Best as it now is, Business Education Skills and Training, is taking some of that money, and it's not a huge amount of money, but it's enough for an apprentice to buy tools, or it subsidises those awful expenses you get at university or whatever, and that helps people. So they're young people, or slightly younger, older people who are involved with our members, and it helps them get on in their careers. But the side effect of that, we set out to do that. We set out to individually help people with their apprentices, their degrees, and for doing STEM-dated schools and things. What's actually happened is, of course, once people are in the system, they become part of the Best Club.
Yeah.
And now these guys know each other because they're doing joint projects on the stand. They're doing projects together, and actually they get to know. Now, as they go through life, they'll end up working for this. At the moment, they're working for Company A. A few years' time, they'll be working for Company B. They'll all swap round. They'll work with each other. They'll work against each other or whatever. But as gradually as we keep feeding the next generation of these guys coming in, hopefully the experience and the bond will keep them in the industry, which is really important. And as they go up, they'll know each other. So they'll be the ones on the board in 30 years' time.
Yeah.
And they'll be the ones, and they'll also be they'll realise that they're not the enemy. So they work together, and that's so. It's a really good thing that we're doing. Really good thing we're doing.
Yeah. I know I'm sort of involved in Automate these days, but from an outsider, I don't think Best is talking about enough.
No,
I think it's one of the things that you guys should be really, really proud of, and you should be shouting.
Oh, we are. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that thing that you were saying about Bianca, that we're 50% of the way there on shouting. We're so bad at shouting at anything, but rather than the exhibition, Richard and I used to do presentations where about, do you realise PPMA does this? And I'd be like, oh my God, you didn't realise that. Best is something that we need to ramp up, and we're not ramp up because it's doing well, but we Automate UK is going to support Best a bit more on the front of shop stuff. So these Richard and his trustees and Charlie can focus on the mechanics. What we also need to do is we've Automate and Automate Best. We've got the apprenticeship cluster model, and that we desperately need. Going back to Richard's thing, going back to patents, right? We desperately need to get the cluster model white papered, because through not people like Richard and ourselves, but myself, but us, the Peters, the Mark Gearings of the world, but moreover the apprentices like Catherine, who obviously works for Richard now, is on last month, and Toby and that crew. We might have just stumbled on a national strategy for technical apprenticeships. So the most important thing we need to do is, as part of our manifesto work that we're doing at the moment, is get that white papered, because that is literally we don't want to make money off the cluster model, but the cluster model is something that you could roll out nationally. Well, we can't. We're not that big, but we can certainly make sure people have we can make sure.
Our contribution.
Yeah.
To what? Yeah. I mean, one thing is
the problem is he's using his Overletti typewriter to type it out, and it's taken a while, right? And it's kind of.
Yeah. And I've run out of Tipex. There's still a button that does something I don't know what it does.
Our closing segment is called Say the Quiet Part. So what's the one thing?
Say the what, sorry?
Say the quiet part. What's the one thing UK manufacturers don't want to hear but absolutely need to?
Machinery manufacturers.
Just UK manufacturing.
I don't want to hear. Well, I think there's I don't know how public this information is. I live in Southampton, which is a seaport, and I know a gentleman who works for one of the big shipping lines, and they have big car carriers, huge, great car carriers, and they supply the car carriers go one way from Europe to the Far East, and they come the other way from the Far East to Europe. And until a little while ago, there might have been, I don't know, this particular line might have been sending 20 car carriers in one direction. These guys, 10,000 cars. And they might have been having 30 coming back the other in a month. So obviously there's a lot of stuff coming from Far East. In the last relatively short time, that has changed to 5 going that way and about 50 coming this way. And that is something that many UK manufacturers don't want to hear, because we are I was at the relaunch of Europalmer the other day. Europalmer is a European Association of Packaging and Processing Associations. It's fantastic. We're involved. The Automate is part of it, which is really good. At the moment, 2/3 of the packaging equipment that is traded in the world originates from Europe. 2/3, which is a huge volume, and it's about the two biggest countries are Germany and Italy, but we're on the next tier, as it were. But for example, the equipment coming in from China has now quadrupled in the last couple of years. Now, and there's nothing wrong with it. You see, there's nothing wrong with Chinese cars. They're just cheaper, so people are buying them. And they're also, that section of the market have been incredibly clever. While we've been trying to get our internal combustion engines more and more efficient, what they've been doing is saying, I mean, everyone said, oh, if you looked at a review of a Kia car a few years ago, it's a very rough engine. But they've done batteries instead. They've worked on batteries. They've seen what... We're not very good at seeing what's coming next and getting ready for it. And that's where we have to be very careful, because the automotive industry, to some extent, is fallen down a hole, and they'll have to dig it out. They'll have to dig out of it. We have still got, in Europe, the bulk of the manufacturing of processing and packaging machinery. But for how long? Now, the nice thing about processing and packaging is everything's different. So the supermarkets, the marketeers, every pack has to look different. They're all different sizes. The volumes are different. They're not that great, which means that there's lots and lots of call for bespoke, specialist automation equipment. You know, the factories are all different shapes. Everything's got to be done. So it doesn't suit the making 60,000 at once that it does in the Far East. So in a sense, we've got a little bit of because we're very bespoke. But what they'll be doing, the bad guys will be doing, is trying to persuade us to have, it's like vending machines. If they persuaded us to have vending machines for all the food packs would be the same size, then we'd be stuffed. So in a sense, we've got to concentrate what we're good at, the creativity, making things different, keeping things different. But we have to look over the horizon. Because, and again, we go back to intellectual property. If we patent things, we can keep them here. But the guys that we didn't think were very good are very good. And it's a tough old thing, a tough old world, and we've got to compete on merit, which means that we have to be looking forwards, which means that you have to be visiting our exhibition to see what's coming next.
Yes.
You see? Yeah.
Segue.
Perfect
Brilliant.
end. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks so much.